It sits in the palm like any other coin, unremarkable to most eyes, dull silver-gray in color, light in weight, and easy to overlook. But to those who know what they are looking at, this piece of metal is far more than a fragment of currency. It's a relic of a specific time, a sliver of history frozen in alloy, a quiet whisper from the past. The 50 Paise coin minted in India in the year 1973 is not merely a means of exchange. It is an artifact carrying the echoes of an entire era, an era of hunger and hope, struggle and aspiration, transformation and tenacity. The year was 1973. India was only 26 years old as an independent republic, still finding its feet in a world where economic pressure, population growth, and political turbulence loomed large. Food scarcity was not a distant memory. It was still etched into the minds of millions. The Green Revolution was well underway, but its promises had not yet reached every corner of the country. For many families, the price of rice or wheat was not just a number, it was the difference between nourishment and hunger. This is the context into which this coin was born. Minted from copper-nickel, weighing 5 grams and measuring 24 millimeters in diameter, it bore more than a numerical value. Carried a message. On one side, the lion capital of Ashoka stood firm, India's emblem of sovereignty, dignity, and statehood. Surrounding it, inscriptions in Hindi and English declared the country's name and the denomination. It looked like countless other coins circulating through hands, markets, pockets, and prayer bowls. But the reverse side held something different. Call to action. A national slogan. A message, grow more food. Those 3 words, flanked by ears of wheat, carried a weight that numbers could not. They were not a suggestion. They were a mandate. They represented a government-driven push to galvanize citizens, particularly in rural areas, to produce more grain, to become self-sufficient, to ensure that future generations would not be dependent on imports or vulnerable to famine. The slogan, in both Hindi and English, was a reflection of policy, propaganda, and optimism wrapped into a single phrase. The choice to stamp this message into a coin was a deliberate one. Currency, unlike posters or radio broadcasts, travels freely, passes through hands without fanfare, embedding itself in the everyday. The message becomes subconscious. Every time a farmer received one in change, every time a shopkeeper handed one to a child, the message was reinforced: grow more food. It was a coin meant to remind, to nudge, to inspire, and in some ways to warn. The India of 1973 was not an easy place to thrive for many. The urban centers were growing, but infrastructure struggled to keep up. The rural heartland, where most of the population lived, was grappling with the promises and pitfalls of agricultural reform. High-yield seeds, chemical fertilizers, and irrigation systems were being introduced, but not all farmers had access. Weather remained unpredictable. The government, through schemes and subsidies, pushed forward, and the coin was part of that push, a tool of subtle persuasion. But as time passed, so did the urgency of the message. The Green Revolution, for all its flaws, did help raise productivity. Food grain output increased, imports lessened, and slowly the slogan faded from the front pages, then from speeches, and eventually from common memory. The coin remained in circulation, but fewer and fewer people paid attention to its words. Inflation and changing coinage policy meant the 50 Paise coin lost its buying power. By the early 2000s, it had become nearly obsolete in day-to-day transactions. People left them in drawers, in old boxes, or unknowingly dropped them on the street. Then came the collectors. Some are drawn to coins for their metal, others for their rarity. But many, especially in places like India, collect coins for what they represent. Each coin is a slice of time, a mirror into national psyche, an object that once had value and now has meaning. For these people, the 1973 50 Paise coin is more than a half rupee. It is a reminder of how a nation once talked to itself. It is modest in form, but vast in narrative. Within collector circles, debates rage not just about condition and mint marks but about what coins signify. The 1973 50 Paise piece came from multiple mints, including Bombay and Calcutta. Some coins have tiny diamond symbols, others have none, which helps determine their origin. Proof sets were also issued in very limited quantities, and these command higher prices due to their preservation and scarcity. Some are polished to a mirror-like finish, untouched by circulation, preserved like museum pieces. Yet, even the most worn example still bears the slogan clearly. Prices for these coins vary. Most sell for a few rupees in local markets. A pristine version might fetch a few hundred. But as interest in numismatics grows, and as stories attached to coins become more valuable than their metal, something unexpected has happened. The perception of value has shifted. No longer just the sum of its material and rarity. This coin has become something else. A symbol, a talking point, a piece of political and agricultural history that now occupies a place in auctions and private collections. And so, the journey continues. A coin that was once given as change in a corner store is now placed under glass. A coin that once bought a small piece of candy or a handful of lentils now represents something richer, something intangible. The child who once held it has grown old. The farmer who once pocketed it while buying seeds may be gone. But the coin remains, unchanged. The words still whisper the same message. Grow more food. Even in countries far from India, collectors look upon the coin with curiosity. Why this slogan? What did it mean? What was happening in the world when this was made? They search, they learn, and through that small disk of copper nickel, a window opens into a foreign past. And through that window, India speaks quietly, resolutely, with conviction. This is just the beginning of the story. For in the decades that followed, the coin would travel more than just physical distances. It would move through time, through economies, through sentiment. It would go from ignored to admired, from common to collectible, from nearly worthless to priceless in the right eyes. And somewhere, in a private vault or a curated collection, one such coin lies waiting. Not for its silver, not for its face value, but because of its soul. Because someone has seen in it what most never will. A legacy, a forgotten voice, and perhaps the rarest thing of all, meaning.